This is the Digital Savage Experience Podcast, hosted by Roman Prokopchuk, bringing you all things digital marketing, tech, business, and motivation. What's stopping you from becoming relentless in all aspects of life? Are you ready to become a digital savage? Let's get into today's episode.
Hey everyone, this is Roman Prokopchuk, and this is the Digital Savage Experience, episode 37, Meeting My Foster Kid's Biological Mom. So, in previous episodes, I've already mentioned in terms of me and my wife getting licensed to become foster parents in June and receiving our first placement, 2 brothers, which are now 18 months and 3 years old, which have been a big blessing in our lives. But in terms of kind of the system, the foster care system, being new foster parents, it's been a little difficult, basically getting acclimated to what the process is, seeing kind of loopholes in the formal kind of New Jersey foster care system, all the bureaucracy, things of that nature, and also getting an incomplete view of what actually happened to the kids for them to get taken away versus finding out a lot of medical records along the way and then piecing the pieces together, which have, angered us in the fact that, what's happened to them, why they got taken away, and things of that nature. So their primary caregiver that they were taken from was their biological mom, which was and is a single parent. So you can only imagine learning all these negative things about someone that they've done to somebody that at this point, the 2 boys that, we love as our own kids would anger us or any other normal person. When you find out, if you even met a stranger that's become a friend, that they tell you their life story, that they've suffered from, emotional, physical, psychological, sexual, and all kinds of other abuse, you're going to feel a certain way, mainly obviously negative to the person that caused that abuse. So, we had the opportunity to we've had the children since June, and a few weeks ago we met with the mom. At first we weren't open to meeting with her, thinking how could, someone let things that have happened to the children or was the culprit of the things that happened, how can we actually, meet with her, and how angry we were. And I think at that point, we've had them for a little while, and that anger was kind of blinding to the fact that, we should meet her. We should, figure out what kind of person she is, because depending on the process and where your foster child is, the guardian may or may not be getting back the child. There may be termination of parental rights, which in that case, if you are the foster parent, you are asked if you are willing to adopt the children, if you've created that bond already. But in our case, currently, the foster mom is doing well in terms of what she has to do to get the kids back, and is doing all the necessary steps and showing up to visits and making an effort to be there, which is kind of, irrelevant to us in a way, but not really, because all you really have to do is show up and get a check mark for attendance or check mark for any kind of treatment that you need to take to get your children back. And that may not necessarily mean that you're changing for the better. Obviously, you could be manipulating the system and just doing it, for show when people are around and maybe acting differently behind closed doors. And things like that we've considered as well. We didn't want to kind of get our guard down, but we started kind of easing into specific facts, like we have to get approval for everything, including taking the kids out of state. So we took the kids to Disney in August. We had to get the mother's approval. And as a result, we took a lot of pictures and we, passed them along to the mother. And we did kind of the same for this meeting. So we basically, more so my wife, use Snapfish to print out all the pictures that we've taken over time, the birthday parties we've thrown the boys since they were with us, all the events and activities we did, just to kind of bridge the time that she hasn't had them. And in terms of a process, the New Jersey foster care system is about reunification. So whatever the situation, if obviously not as severe as automatically terminating parental rights, their end goal is reunification from the guardian that the children were taken from. So it's still going, obviously, the reunification route, but there's a thing called bridging the gap. So you meet the person that they were taken away from and that they would be going to if everything, fans out, basically speaking about the children, building some kind of, it doesn't necessarily have to be you're holding hands, in your kitchen singing Kumbaya, but creating some kind of bond where the ease of transition isn't as hard on the children. Because if they do end up going back to the mother, I'm going to be heartbroken. It's going to take a while to basically get over it, because at this point it's going to be like, they're my sons, and it's going to be like taking them away from me. And at that point it's like, suffering a loss that, you've had kids and they were taken from you, basically. So that's going to take a while to get through. But in terms of the kids in this situation, they're, young and fragile from all the things that they have been through already. So bridging the gap would enable them to kind of transition back to the parent in as smooth of a way as possible. Not to say that this whole situation that, these poor two kids have been thrown into is any kind of normal, but we've been trying to add as much normalcy as possible to their lives. So I think we're doing a decent job, but we ended up, speaking to the mother. She seemed like she cared. She asked things like, are they eating their vegetables? Things about their allergies, kind of filled in certain pieces that were missing in terms of information, spoke about them like she was really happy to see, how they're progressing. She also, which was nice, basically, she could see how much me and my wife care for the boys, and she actually acknowledged that and thanked us for taking care and loving her boys and keeping them safe, which was nice. But I mean, it's still hard. We basically were put in a room. The caseworker, I may or may not is around for these things, but she had to step out. So basically we had to introduce each other, but it wasn't as hard as we thought it would be. Because, I mean, in my opinion, in the back of my mind, I was saying to myself, as soon as she says something mean or something, whatever, I'm going to go off and, give my 10 cents about, what's happened to them and things of that nature. But it was a fairly cordial process. I think everybody was civil and nice. Like I said, the mom thanked us. She saw how we interact with the children, and we saw a little bit of how she interacts with the children. We learned about some of the things that they're interested in still, or were interested in when we got them, and how, that became a thing. And, we even at the end of it, we let her walk them to the car, which, the older son, was emotional about, her leaving. We let her, put them in the car seats and say bye to them. I shook her hand. She gave my wife a hug, and we agreed in terms of next steps that we'll exchange email addresses to share information and pictures and that kind of thing. And possibly, if, things go well, meet in a public place outside of, the allotted visits, weekly visits with the mom, and have her interact with them for an hour or two, or have a meal together, or depending how it goes, to make it easier on the children. So that's kind of how the process was. And it was emotional regardless, because in the back of my mind I keep thinking that they're gonna leave at some point, which, sucks. But also that, if they're to go back to somebody, I want that person to be healthy and not have any issues that, they had before, and they're ready to take the children back and have them in a safe and loving environment. So that's kind of the state of the union of where that process is. So, ideally we are hoping to keep the kids and, best case scenario, adopt them. If somebody just called us right now, are you willing to adopt them? I think me and my wife both would, say yes. But, we're also realistic that in terms of the process is reunification, and if the mother keeps doing the right steps, she will, regain custody of the children. And, we would like to have some kind of communication with the kids or updates in terms of how they're growing up. And if anything, God forbid, happens where they end up back in the system, that we end up being called and they end up being with us. But as far as that goes, I mean, it's an emotional process, very rewarding, prior to which me and my wife said, we can never do something like that. We can't see the kids, fall in love with kids and have them been taken away. Some of the stories we've heard in person in different, support groups and in different groups online where, the foster parents have built a bond with the children, and basically they get a call in the morning saying, hey, we're picking up the kid, they're being returned or they're being taken somewhere else, in the afternoon, pack their things, and you can't even, explain to the child what's going on and why, and they get shipped off to, a family member's house of the person they were taken away or somewhere else. And it's just kind of hard, especially on the kids, from going place to place, having a bunch of people pick them up, take them to places, and not understanding what's going on. It's tough on adults. So, a lot of adults say to my wife and I, why, I could never do this. It's too emotional. And, the explanation for that, if you can't do it and you're a good person, what's the likelihood of them to end up somewhere in a bad scenario and you could have prevented that? I don't think we wanted, 2 foster children to begin with. We didn't know how much work it would be. Wanted 1 child, but basically they were being taken away from their first placement because the foster parent couldn't handle them. So, it was either take them or have them split up and end up in, separate homes, which would have obviously influenced their development. So we're happy we took 2 boys. They've been blessings. We've had up to 4 boys in our home in terms of an emergency placement. So it's been, a juggling act with, family stuff, things in terms of, growing business and digital marketing stuff and the podcast and blogging and things of that nature, and having 2 dogs. But I think once you fall into a routine and have a schedule for things like that, it's a lot smoother. So if anyone has any questions about the foster process or has thought about fostering, regardless of what state you're in, feel free to reach out via social or my email. Or if you guys have any other recommendations or whatever you want to see in terms of a format for this podcast or oncoming or on future episodes, feel free to reach out. And until next time, take care, guys.
This podcast has been brought to you by Nova Zora Digital. Find out how Nova Zora Digital can help your company grow online. Learn more at novazoradigital.com. Until next time, all you digital savages.